Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 254 being recorded on June 5th, 2013. I'm Ryan Schrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malventano.
And I'm Maury Tettleman.
We are attempting to break the servers today by adding in an additional person, upgrading to beta software, and we're not doing anything different streaming-wise, are we? We did change a lot of stuff on the server, but in an attempt to add something later.
I poked around a bit.
We changed some code, so we'll see how it all goes. So there's some stuff happened this week, so we need to talk about it, I guess, in terms of computer hardware. If you're curious as a listener, our show notes have never gone to the second page of a Google Doc before.
Liar.
Unless you maybe not even at CES, because we do a show every day at CES.
We don't make show notes.
But around this time every year,
Yeah,
they
that's true.
tend to stretch out a bit.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So maybe this year. Well, no.
So
because
you're a
usually
liar.
at Computex,
You're lying. You lie.
No, because we only do one show a week at Computex as well, I guess. But it's very early for me, and let's not get into it. So Computex is going on, but that wasn't enough, so everybody decided to launch new products. GeForce GTX 770 was released last week, right after we recorded the show, so we weren't able to include it in that particular discussion. We're going to go through some of these things quicker than normal. If you feel like you're missing out on some of the detail, the good news is we have this text-based version of the podcast called PCPer.com that you can go to every day. It's always available 24 hours, maybe 23 and a half or something like that a day. So get some additional detail there. GTX 770 is a new card released last week. The good news is it's new and it's cheaper. The bad news is that it's not really new because it's still the same GK104 GPU found in the GTX 680. So the 670 and the 680 essentially have the exact same specifications. They have the same number of shader processors. They have the same number of graphics processing clusters. Same amount of memory, 2 gigs or 4 gigs, same memory interface, 256 bits. The differences are in the base clock, boost clock, and memory clock. Base clock goes up 40 megahertz, that's 40. Boost clock a little bit less. And then memory clock goes from 6 gigahertz up to 7 gigahertz. And I had an internet argument with somebody about the nomenclature of 6 gigabits per second versus 6 gigahertz, and that he tried to tell me one of those was incorrect, that the gigabits per second was incorrect, and
I hear that those are very productive
internet arguments. Somebody on the internet was wrong, and I needed to fix it.
Did you put a cape on for it?
I did, yeah, and a mask too.
So is GK104 going to be the next 8800 GTX, 9800 GT, 9800 GTX?
You think we're just going to see it forever? I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. I don't. I feel like what happened with the 600 and the 700 series is that there was a shift in the market. There was a shift in process technology, and that they're just milking a little bit more of that architecture than they thought they would have to. I guess maybe it's not that they have to, but that they choose to, because from a business side of point, there's no real value in creating a whole new architecture for them right now if they're still selling parts very well and they're still, their graphics division is profitable. I'm trying to think, was there anything else that changed on the 770? They added like GPU Boost 2.0, which is basically just a little bit better control. It's using temperature as the primary monitoring port instead of power usage as the primary monitoring point. Do they have faster memory?
I forgot. Is it 7,000?
Yeah. It's 7 gigahertz instead of 6 gigahertz, so it's a little bit faster. And like I said, the clock frequencies are 40 megahertz faster at reference speeds. But because it's a design, a PCB design and chip design that all the vendors already know very well. Companies like EVGA and MSI and ASUS launched with their kind of custom designs. ASUS had the Direct CU2, MSI had a Lightning, EVGA had the SC, what is it? ACX, and then Galaxy had like a GC model. So everybody had like kind of custom cooler overclocked models available. So the 770 reference designs, which I should point out, if you look at the pictures, it looks like a Titan, looks like a 690, it looks like the 780. I really do like this, industrial design, but it's not necessary, right? I mean, it's a good cooler and all that kind of stuff. Connections are the same. Here you can actually see there's the ASUS Direct CU2 model. We have the Galaxy GTX 770 GC, and then we have the Asus GTX 770 Lightning. So, obviously these are cards that took a little bit longer to come out in the world of the 680. Came out immediately with the 770. That's one of the benefits. The other benefit is that the price came down. This card was retailing for $399 on launch day for kind of like the reference speed models. And what I thought was interesting was that the 680 was still more expensive as of like 36 hours after launch. I'm going to go ahead and check that.
But
now.
it's like it's like a mature fine wine.
Is it?
Yes, that
No, it's not.
the older the PCB, the better it runs.
So here, there's one for less than $399, but the rest of them, like, they're still like 409, 415, 419, and these are all reference clock speeds and reference coolers that are much louder and more obnoxious. And then if I go ahead here and check for the 770s, I assume that we'll still have stock and $399 price points and that kind of stuff. Ooh, 74. Oh, cooler. $399. Yeah, so it makes absolutely zero sense at this point to buy a 680 unless you already have one and you're just, going to get one in SLI. But if I were you, I'd actually wait a little bit longer and see if somebody wakes up and starts selling the 680s for the appropriate price. Performance-wise, 770 anywhere from 2 or 3% to 7 or 8% faster than the 680, just depending on if there was any kind of memory bottleneck in any of the games we were testing. What it does kind of create, if you look at the pricing structure today, the 770 is $400, the 780 is $650, and then the Titan is $1,000, and the 690 is $1,000, right? So what is interesting is that's the $250 gap between the GTX 770 and the GTX 780 is huge. And I don't really know if it's a valid performance gap. We're talking, 20, 25% kind of at the high side for performance differences between the 770 and the 780. For a $250 investment, it's kind of not great. What it does do is it puts pressure on AMD, who has the 7990 gigahertz edition selling for $449 still.
7970?
What did I say?
7990.
Yeah, no, 7970.
Yes.
7970 gigahertz edition still going for like $449. So it's good to see NVIDIA putting pressure on them pricing wise. Other than that, the 770 is a card that we're already very familiar with architecturally. I don't know if anybody else has any more feedback on that, or we can move on to other things. Anybody? No?
When do they have 4 gig versions coming out? Because that's the only thing I'm interested in.
I think they have. I think if they don't already, they will very soon, because they mentioned 4 gig versions in like the press materials that they were handing out and stuff.
Because it'd be a nice surround gaming card.
Yeah, this one is showing up. This is the one that shows up at Newegg, but it's not in stock.
Not in stock.
But if it's only $50 more, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
that turns out to be the case. But they had 4 gig versions of the 680 already, so I don't think there's anything holding them back from releasing that product. So let's move on. Another release this week. We had processors galore. We'll start with Haswell. This is Intel's new architecture that will run from high-end desktops down to tablet form factors. We're talking about the desktop components being in the 84-watt TDP, replacing Sandy Bridge, replacing Ivy Bridge, that kind of form factor. Socket 1150, it's a brand new socket, new motherboard, new chipset, all that kind of stuff. We've talked about the Haswell architecture many times, so I'm not going to go over all of that detail again, but just to say that there are IPC increases on this x86 side. There are more increases on the graphics side, even for the desktop replaceable parts that don't actually get the new GT3 model of integrated graphics. They're GT2. They're just a little bit higher clocked, a little bit improved performance-wise. So in terms of CPU performance, you're getting changes in IPC that range from 2 to 3%. Actually, here, let me go to this page where I can show you, where am I looking at here? Clock for clock, Sandy versus Ivy versus Haswell. So here, this is a good one to look at, right? If you look at the Cinebench single thread, you'll see the score goes up just a little bit from Sandy to Ivy and just a little bit more from Ivy to Haswell. But the gap from, Sandy Bridge to Haswell is obviously a combination of those. So if you're on a Sandy Bridge or you're still a little bit behind that, I'm not talking about anybody in particular in the room here with me.
Leave my Nehalem alone.
Right. Well, see, I didn't put a Nehalem in here, and we probably should have, because it's a totally different discussion, right? If you look at TrueCrypt, so here's something where AES decryption or acceleration has improved over Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge, so you get a big difference there, but then, the kind of average results, not very dramatically different, and then you get some X264 benchmark results. So you can see, even running at the exact same clock speed, that there are performance advantages to Haswell. They're not overly dramatic, but they're not awful either. If we look at the graphics performance, where we compare, let's see here, what are we comparing? If we look at the new 3D Mark 2013 Ice Storm test, where we look at Haswell versus Ivy Bridge versus Sandy Bridge versus Trinity, this review went up before Richland, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You can see that, if we just scroll down here, the graphics score, Haswell is a significant jump over Ivy Bridge, which was a jump over Sandy Bridge, but the A10 5800K is still faster than the GT 4600 graphics part of Haswell. But the overall, actually this is a better example. So if we look at the overall score here, Haswell at stock is faster than the Trinity, but if we look at the graphics score, Haswell is a little bit faster, but not much. But if you look at the physics score, it's dramatic, right? So you get into the x86 processing of Haswell versus Trinity, and that's a really big difference. In real world gaming, 1080p, Dirt 3, you're talking about Haswell running at about 41 frames per second versus 37 for Ivy Bridge, but 52 for Trinity. And Left 4 Dead sees kind of a similar jump across those different components there. So Haswell is better. It's not that much better. There is a GT3 part out there. There's a GT3E part that has embedded memory. I didn't get to test any of that stuff yet. It will be faster, obviously, than what we have here, but Intel's not offering that to DIY users. They're not offering that to people who want to build their own system or home theater PC or anything like that. That's only going to be currently offered in all-in-one systems and laptops. So there's a lot of confusion around that still. There's some chances that they may come up with maybe another option down the road that will enable, because I think the GT3E part, the faster graphics with 128 megs of cache, would actually be interesting for non-graphics workloads, and to see what performance delta that offers in certain applications would be kind of interesting. Maybe Intel will do that someday. Probably not, but maybe. Power consumption wise, Haswell does use more power than Ivy Bridge. We found about 20 to 25 watts more under load. And then when we overclocked it, so this is standard Haswell, this is 4.5 gigahertz Haswell up top. That's a significant jump. We're talking about 75 watts or so extra power required, and temperatures hovering in the 80s to 90s Celsius.
Do you remember, I think it was my Vishera review when I overclocked that, and yeah, it was pretty standard power draw, but then it jumped like 100 watts.
Yeah, it was
overclocked.
huge.
Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting to see that Intel is not immune to this type of.
If you think about it, the overclocked 4.5 gigahertz Haswell is still under the power of the FX 8350 in this graph by just a couple of watts, but still under it a little bit. And if we look at the CPU performance of Haswell at 4.5 versus the Bulldozer, I guess I thought I changed those names in the graphs. The Vishera FX 8350, that's pretty dramatic. But the processor cost is down. The 4770K, the Core i7 4770K, which is the top-end desktop Haswell, is $339 compared to Bulldozer down there. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. The FXA 350 at $199, Trinity at $129, maybe a little bit less now. This one obviously kind of throws things off on the SKU there. The Core i7 3970X Sandy Bridge E's over $1,000. Extreme Edition processors were like that. You know, people are disappointed that CPU performance isn't increasing faster, but at least they're not charging us more for it, right? So I mean, when Sandy Bridge launched, it was about $339. When Ivy Bridge launched, it was about $339, and now when Haswell launches, it's about $339. So there's.
But do you remember what like a Pentium 2 400 was when they introduced a Pentium 2 450?
I do not.
And that was like a $750 part at the top end.
Yeah.
And then they lowered the price of the Pentium 2 400 to about $425.
Yeah. So I mean, all things considered, processing is still cheap. The if you look at performance per dollar, this is the last graph I'll talk about. You get, if you look at Haswell at stock, you're talking about 18.6. What was this? Frames per second per dollar, essentially. Sandy Bridge E. Obviously not a good value. It's the fastest part, but it's not a good value. AMD does a good job of making sure that their parts are a good value, even if they're not performing at the top level. You can look at the FX8350 or the A1050-100K, and they're offering superior frames per second per dollar compared to Haswell or Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge and that kind of stuff. So there are still advantages and reasons to use AMD if pure CPU performance is not the major concern. So we have a lot of other stuff we'll get into here. I think what we'll do is actually let's before we jump into the Richland talk, I think we'll talk about the Z87 stuff. So my takeaway from the 4770K would be it's a great part if you're building a new system. It's the part that I would build a new system around. If you have an Ivy Bridge system, you don't need to upgrade. If you have a Sandy Bridge system, you don't need to upgrade. If you have something beyond that, it's probably time to upgrade anyway. And like I said, this is what I would use. If you're one of those people that just likes to upgrade anyway, there will be new platforms and options that will be impressive and maybe push you in that direction anyway. Haswell is not backwards compatible with the Z77 or any chipset, and Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge will not work on the Z87 chipset, which we'll start to talk about here in just a second. So it is completely cut off change point for everybody. The only thing that works is the coolers. If you have an 1156, 1155 CPU cooler or one of the water coolers, you can continue to use that on your Haswell platform as well. Maury, you're here, right? Is Maury still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right, so you've been working on some motherboards, I guess.
Yeah, you could say that.
Just a few. So the high level,
stack is as tall as he is.
It's close.
My stack is as tall as I am.
The quick overview of Z87 is it's very derivative of Z77, right? It adds takes you from 2 to 6 SATA 6G ports, and it moves you to 6 USB 3.0 ports, which is nice. Other than that, are there any other major differences, Maury, that I'm forgetting about, like feature point differences of Z87?
No, I think that's it. I'm trying to rack my brain on this. No, I mean the other differences are really with how they had to address the CPU. It's with the CPU strap stuff and
right.
It's using a ring bus instead of the just going off base clock for everything. A lot of them. Well, there is one thing, Ron, actually, and so far I've only seen it on the ASUS board, on an ASUS board, I should say. But I think there's like at least one or two other boards that are using it. Intel released a new slot design for mini SATA drives. They're calling it M.2, and I think the other is it's either M.2 or NFGG, I think it's called. But it's basically M-SATA, but it's a different form factor. So the connector is a little bit smaller than the Mini PCIe and the M-SATA. But performance-wise, I don't think there's any differences in that. I think it's just a new form factor, but okay. I'm not entirely sure. The one nice thing with them going to all 6 gigabit per second slots for the motherboard boards. Oh, Alan has one apparently.
No, that's the old style.
That's
But my point
SATA.
was
Okay.
that,
Yep.
like,
Yeah, I think the M.2 is a little bit smaller than that.
yeah,
Yeah.
as if this is not small enough.
Smaller.
Yeah. Smaller.
You know, like when you
Yep.
put a quarter up next to it.
Yeah.
So,
come on.
Maury, let's dive into these. We actually posted 3 different reviews on launch day of motherboards. The Asus ROG Maximus 6 Extreme, the Asus Gryphon Z87 Tough Series, and the MSI Z87 GD65 gaming motherboard. Let's start with the Asus Maximus 6. And again, as we're talking about, this is going to be a long show. So we don't want to dive into too much on this. There's a lot more detail in all 3 of these articles that went up. But what is your kind of high-level takeaway from the Maximus 6 Extreme?
Okay. If you guys are at all familiar with the Maximus line, the Maximus 6 is basically the Maximus 5 with some really nice additions from Asus. They added something called the Combo 2 port with a card that's basically an integrated Wi-Fi and M.2 card adapter, and the M.2 basically uses one of the SATA 6 ports on it.
Right.
They also, added more USB slots on there. The cooler, the really nice thing on that is a heat pipe cooler is fully connected, so it includes the chipset. A lot of the heat pipes do not include the actual chipset cooler. That's usually on its own. That's one of my big things when I'm looking for a board, because that chipset can get rather hot.
All right.
I think it's connected. No, maybe
Down
that's
here
board.
it's not, no. But,
oh, wait, I might be wrong. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm wrong about that then. That might be another board I'm thinking of. Sorry, so many boards.
There's a lot of boards.
The other thing, sorry for getting off camera. I'm just going to pull something real quick. The other
didn't
thing they
notice.
include is this OC panel thing. It's really cool. Sorry for not having that. You guys can see that. This is the OC panel. Basically, this plugs into the board, and it's a handheld overclocking device. Lets you do real-time overclocking. It has a button that also includes a profile. If you open it up, you can actually attach more. If you power it, you can attach more fans. There is buttons in there. There's a lot of LN2 stuff in there as well. If you do LN2 cooling, you can actually use some of the headers to actually directly solder leads from your graphics cards to the device, and you can actually monitor temperatures and voltages.
It's pretty awesome.
It's a really nice unit, and it's it's really. If you look at this, it's really nice.
I'm showing a picture of it from your article, and these resistors here are actually extra. Like let me see if you got the picture here. Yeah, these pictures here are extra for you to desolder and attach to things as you wish. Right.
And I think also there's see the headers up in the upper left of the picture. Those are also more solder points.
Yep.
But remember, solder does
think
not
about
stick
this.
well
Have
to
any of
flash.
you seen
Don't
any
install
product
them.
ever come out that is like DIY solder some stuff to the board? I've
sure.
never seen a
On a perfect
manufacturer.
ten.
Back in the day, that was back in the back in the 90s when you were soldering thermistors to the back of the AMD boards.
Well, yeah, but that was like sort of a hack, right? But this is like, here it is. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to solder on this thing. That's pretty crazy.
You're not supposed to, but we're allowing.
But it's only for LN2 though. I mean, it's even got if you can see that port right there. I didn't get a good picture of it in the review because it's really hard to see. But that port right there is some kind of specialized temperature, like it's a professional grade temperature meter, and I don't know. Because I'm not a hardware guy.
It's sub-zero temperature monitoring.
Those are for
it can monitor up to like
thermocouples.
negative 200 Kelvin or something. It's some crazy industrial thing.
Actually, I recognize that because we use the same stuff on reactor plants on submarines.
Well, yeah,
It's a
that's what I'm saying. It's
thermocouple
crazy industrial stuff, Alan.
Yeah, it's serious industrial thermocouple measurement stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. But the Z87 Maximus is a very, very, very nice board. They really put everything and anything you could ever want on that board. That thing's got more buttons than I've ever seen on a board in my
And you
life. I mean,
pushed them
seriously, it's got
all.
like at least 10
You're pushing
buttons
my
on
buttons,
it. It's got
Maury.
jumpers. It's even got jumpers on it. It's got physical jumper block that you can disable PCIe slots if you want to. It's crazy what they did with it. So
What's what about in terms of like features that I might actually use? BIOS, BIOS, EFI, that kind of stuff.
It has an on-off switch or a button.
It's got an on-off. It's got a reset button.
Smart ass.
No, the UEFI. It's they use on all the ASUS boards. They use the same UEFI, but they just mask features.
Mm-hmm.
On the ROG Extreme board, they basically show you everything. There's the coolest stuff in it is the shortcut and my favorites. Shortcut is a pop-up menu that pops up. Basically, you can right-click or tag any menu or submenu to show up in the shortcuts menu, so you can get to it you can get to the menu or submenu instantly by going to the shortcuts menu. The other thing is a My Favorites page. My Favorites page allows you to basically tag any settings or option, and it puts it in a centralized tab called My Favorites. It's really nice because you don't have to go through anything. And as you can see from the screenshot, I basically put a bunch of things from a bunch of different pages in there. You can put anything in there as long as it's not a menu. As long as you can select the option, you can put it in there, but it cannot be a menu or a submenu. It has to be a setting in there.
Yeah.
That's the one shortcoming. So it's kind of, if you're not careful, you can basically make a mess of things in there. You can have like all these settings just in there, and they're not organized.
Right.
But otherwise, it's a really nice thing. The other thing they have in there is called Tweaker's Paradise. Tweaker's Paradise is something even I wouldn't mess with. I mean, this is something that the LN2 guys and the super extreme overclockers, like the guys on...
Maury, you don't know what X-Talk cancellation voltage is?
No, I need to Google that.
No, I don't know either.
This stuff is like the stuff that you go in and you're looking for like the 0.01 megahertz increase in your overclock, because you're trying to go for that world record, 7 or 8 gigahertz overclock, where you're disabling everything and trying to get the most out of the board.
I just wanted to
They also have the CPU strap, which all the boards have, but the CPU strap ASUS did some cool stuff with that. They actually have a strap they have a strap at 100, 125, 166, and 250. And basically the strap is controls the speed of the ring bus, which in turn controls the PCIe speed, the CPU speed, and the PCI speed, the base clock speed, and the memory speed. Memory and base clock speed are 1-to-1, with the memory multiplier.
Right.
And the PCI speed, the cool thing is that they try to keep the PCI speed as close to 100 as possible to negate any overclocking or bus-related instability. ASUS recommends you don't go over 166 unless you have a really, really, really good CPU. I've seen them as high as 200 at some undisclosed locations. But the 166 is,
he's talking Tijuana in a meth den.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll point out, there's a lot of other cool features they put into this, like the ability to hook your reset button up to a different jumper on the motherboard, where your reset button now actually shuts down smoothly and takes you right back into the BIOS, right?
Yeah, that's called direct key. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Which is really cool for me, which is great. If you weren't here yesterday or Tuesday, I guess it was, JJ from ASUS was in town, and we did a 4.5 hour live stream yesterday where we went over every single motherboard
in one breath,
pretty much. And we went through every single ASUS motherboard for the Z87 lineup. Not every single one, but we had 20 of them here. We went over, talked about what the feature differences were in the mainstream line, the TUF series, the ROG series, and then we had video of him using the software to overclock, using the EFI to overclock. We have this 900D based ROG video that I want to hang on here. Hold on. This is there's only one good part in this.
Because Ryan wants the D.
So here, yeah.
See, there's Ryan with the D.
I mean, it basically created 2 separate rooms for us on this table because we didn't. This is funny though.
Forgive me, Father, for our sin.
So I'm behind this case here, and then look, I peek through right over there. I had to see
5 Hail Marys and overclock to 4 gigahertz.
So check out that. There's 5 parts to it that we've got uploaded to our YouTube channel, or you can go to the PCPro.com and find all videos listed there. And we went over all kinds of features, all kinds of ideas, all kinds of stuff in the EFI, all kinds of stuff in the AI suite as well. Maury, before we move on to the next board, is there any last thing you want to say about the Maximus? I know we're going to come back to these boards a little bit later and do overclocking testing and some more performance stuff. Is that right?
That's actually something I wanted to mention too as an aside. We actually changed the way we're doing, well, at least the way I'm doing motherboard reviews on the Intel side. We're doing basically a kind of a higher level review for the first review, where we do specifics on a motherboard, specifics on a BIOS, specifics on the apps included, some baseline benchmarks, maybe 4 or 5 benchmarks, usually business related and some CPU and memory related stuff. And just trying to get the reviews out faster and get you guys more information of what you want and make it a little shorter. And then for select boards, we'll come back and do overclocking, maybe more benchmarking, do the take aparts on the boards that I know y'all love, and also the drive, LAN, audio, and power testing.
All right.
So that's the plan for now, and it's a work in progress, so we'll tweak it as we go probably.
Okay. Much of the next product is very similar, but what differentiates the new ASUS Gryphon Z87 board?
The ASUS Gryphon is their Micro-ATX tough board, which the tough line is more about thermal control, thermals, and all that stuff. I mean, it still has a high overclocking thing, but it's more about the thermals, more about the features, because this is more of it's kind of almost a workstation style. This and the Z87 Sabertooth are almost workstation class boards, more than the enthusiast boards.
They're built for reliability and longevity instead of
that's what I was going for.
Overclocking features specifically or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, the ROG boards are gamers and overclocking. Yes, exactly right. These are reliability. The one thing with the Gryphon is that it does not come with the thermal armor kit. The thermal armor kit is an add-on for the Gryphon. I believe the pricing is going, and this is grain of salt too, is going to be between $25 and $50 for the thermal armor kit. I did include pictures of the board with the thermal armor kit also. The thermal armor kit's really cool because it includes thermistors, includes the overlay. They also have a underboard overlay on it they're calling a fortifier. That's basically a Sex steel plate.
Right.
So it adds lots of rigidity to the board. They also include a fan. The fan is in the rear panel. They also include socket protectors, where it's for rear panel sockets and all the onboard.
So you can plug up all those ports you're not using.
SATA or USB ports.
Yeah.
Yep. So you can see the protectors in there, and you can also see the fan peeking out under there too. The fan, that's an inlet fan. They include a rear panel with the board. It comes with a rear panel that accommodates the fan, because the fan is an inlet fan, and they actually have with the thermal armor kit, it comes with a filter that goes that section over where they're on the rear panel. They actually have a filter that snaps in there, so you don't have to worry about dust getting in there, because that's the one thing, is they want to protect it from dust. They're doing an inlet fan rather than an outlet fan because they're trying to make positive pressure. The way the pressure works and I'm sorry again if this is, if I'm dumbing it down for all you guys, because I know you guys know a lot. They do positive pressure so that the dust is sent outwards instead of being sucked in. If they did an outlet fan from that, it would basically suck air in to the thermal armor, rather than with positive pressure, they're sucking air out. So if they sucked it in, it would suck dust and all that stuff in. By putting positive pressure in the thermal armor kit, it's actually pushing it out.
Gotcha.
That's basic case cooling 101 and water cooling, all that stuff. You always want positive pressure.
Gotcha.
That's the way you get rid of dust.
Now the BIOS.
I like how they use. Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Josh.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I love how the tough armor is actually spreading to other series from ASUS.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it looks cool. Like the armor on the Sabertooth. I think a lot of people buy it just because of that look and style, as opposed to the fact that I'm getting higher rated capacitors and that kind of stuff. So when we look at the EFI and the BIOS, JJ hates it when I call it the BIOS. The UEFI, even though it says UEFI BIOS utility right there on the screen.
EFI.
It's it has pretty much all the same features, right? It's just stylized different. It's color coded, to go along with that series of board, right?
Yep, it's stylized different, and it goes more towards the reliability and cooling aspects that the board is known for. Reliability, stability, cooling, all that. The coloration in the BIOS goes with the tough series is more gray and brown and tan, the kind of military desert style almost. Right. You don't get all the overclocking features exposed that you do on the ROG series. You do not have a port for the OC panel. That is a ROG specific item.
Gotcha.
But you do get the armor overlay. And one of the cool things I've seen with the armor overlay that I'd actually like to try is people will actually take the armor overlay and stylize it for their case. Like they paint it, they paint it camouflage or something like that. And that would be a really cool case mod to try, or something. All right, it's
that's
kind of
cool.
a neat thing.
Yeah, I'll take that. All right, so that's the ASUS Gryphon, and the third review that we had from you for the Z87 launch was the MSI Z78 GD65 gaming board. What are the highlights of this?
The gaming board is similar to the Z77 gaming. It also includes a killer NIC. It's stylized with the red and black color scheme that the gaming board is popular for. What else? The biggest change is the heatsink design. They actually improved the heatsink design with the Z87 gaming. If you compare the picture from the VRM heatsinks I'm talking about, the actual heatsinks are a little bit better designed. I think it does have an M-SATA port. If you look up a little bit, the M-SATA port's right next to the CPU socket. And that M-SATA port again is tied to the Intel 6 gigabit bus, so you basically can use that, or you can use all your ports on your Intel side. They also include a better audio chipset on there. They call it Audio Boost, but it's basically it gives you higher fidelity because of the components they use in that, and it actually glows. I think it's blue or purple when the board is on.
Glowy.
Yeah.
Hey, Maury.
Other than that, it's really, it's great. They did a really good job in general with the higher end GD65 gaming boards. This board and the Z77 version are similar. They just made some adjustments to it. But it's a good board. It's a really good board.
Alan, you had a question?
Yeah. So on previous boards, when we saw them include the M-SATA port, and I'm talking like maybe some of the Sandy Bridge versions, they would just not give you the sixth chipset port, physical SATA port. It would just be replaced by the M-SATA. So does this board have that port there? How does that work?
How it works on this board and on every board I've seen with either the M.2 or the M-SATA ports, they basically have some kind of circuit in there that auto detects if the M-SATA is active. If the M-SATA is active, it usually disables port 5 or 6 on the Intel of the Intel slots on a board. So you can have a device if you basically had a device plugged in a shared port, and you had the M-SATA plugged in, the M-SATA would win out, and the other drive would just not be seen by the system. But still, most of these boards have between 8 and 10 SATA ports on them. So, and all the ports are 6 gigabit. So that shouldn't be a problem unless you're running some kind of extreme Allen style RAID.
Anything unique in the BIOS EFI, anything like that?
The BIOS, they did some. No, they didn't really. The BIOS looked a lot like, if I recall correctly, the BIOS looked a lot like the Z77 BIOS. Let me just take a quick.
Oh, did we lose Amori? Oh,
maybe he just, got really involved into
internet
trying to
connection
find
problem. Is everybody else still here?
Yeah.
Am I here?
The overclock button
can you hear
on his
me?
little gadget there.
Because you guys are sounding really strange to me.
I sound great.
No, you don't.
Yeah, normal audio here.
Yeah, all right.
Video's a
Well,
bit
Maury
slow,
was
but-
saying that the BIOS on the MSI GD65 gaming is substantially good and stuff. I don't really know. We'll see if we can get him back. and we'll finish up on that. But let's actually, this is good. As good a time. Skype lady wants to know.
Hey, Skype lady.
Let's
Josh can kill some time.
Let's talk about the Richland. Trust me. What we don't need to do tonight is kill any time. So tell me about Richland in 140 characters or less.
Are you reading my mind?
140 characters or less.
Oh. Richland.
That's 8.
It's good enough
I can't count
for
anymore.
a lot of people.
Okay. All right. Good. Well
All right,
done.
there you have it. Now, Richland it's an interesting thing. Trinity, of course, was released about 9 months ago. It sported VLIW4 graphics. It had decent performance for the price that it was set at. It was 2 Vishera cores, no L3 cache, had a 384 core count Radeon core unit. God, I'm just full of technical terms tonight.
You are.
I am. Good speeds, 3.8 gigahertz with a 4.2 gigahertz boost. It was an 800 megahertz GPU clock. It was a pretty big jump up from Llano. We're looking at about 20-25% overall performance in terms of both CPU and GPU. And it kind of set the benchmark of what a good integrated CPU should be. I thought it was, well balanced in terms of what you got in terms of, you got 4 threads, you had decent performance. It wasn't anywhere near close to a lot of Intel parts, but once you started to look at the price of it and the quality of the graphics you got, it really was a good product. And then you add into that the A85X chipset, which gave you 8 SATA ports, 4 USB 3.0 ports, a single chip solution, and even high-end boards based on this processor were maybe at $139. So compared to that to some of the Z87 products that Maury was talking about, which would span into the $250 to $300 range, and even though you're not getting the CPU performance, you're getting a lot of the same features, but for really half the price. And AMD is continuing to go.
Discrete GPU.
What's that again?
Without having to buy a discrete GPU.
Yeah,
Which,
and I mean, if you're going to do light gaming, a lot of desktop stuff, a couple of benchmarks here and there if you're curious. Video, Hulu, Netflix. It's a great little processor. It had, the UVD functions. It had the VEC or video encode. The VCE video coding engine or encoding engine. I can't remember, but anyway. These are all things in one product that they're now not reintroducing, but they're updating with the Richland cores. The top end is the A10 6800K. It retails for $142. They also sent along an A10 6700. It's not a K version. It's not unlocked. But unlike the other versions, it's a 65-watt TDP product. And those are the 2 top SKUs. And they're both $142. You get, of course, better performance, but slightly worse thermals and power consumption with the 6800K. You're also allowed to overclock that. The 6700K is going to be a really nice high-performance HTPC desktop processor, mainstream type unit. It's not overly expensive. The motherboards for them go anywhere from about $45 up to, again, the $139 is about the top end that you see anymore. And so when you put those things together, you got a pretty feature-packed machine that doesn't cost a whole lot of money. It's not going to beat the world in terms of performance. It's not going to outperform a standalone GPU in the $100 to, of course, $1,000 range. But for something that essentially is for free, you get a lot of performance. Now, the basis of Richland is, of course, Trinity. It's the same overall die, but they've done a few things to it. It's a slightly newer revision, and they activated a bunch of the thermal sensors that were not previously activated in Trinity. They also did a whole lot of firmware and software development and just some low-level design to improve the thermal characteristics of these parts to improve the clock speed, and of course then to improve overall performance, but not without breaking the TDP bank. So the new 6800K is the same 100-watt TDP, but as the 5800K. But instead of the 3.8 gigahertz base clock that the 5800K is at, we're up at 4.1 gigahertz. Now, the boost clock for this is 4.4 gigahertz, which used to be the highest overclock that I could get for the 5800K. And so it's another 200 extra megahertz that we'd get to see in full turbo mode. Now, they've improved pretty much all aspects of the power delivery, power monitoring, thermal monitoring, and usage characteristics to be able to more adequately optimize how long these products go into a turbo mode. So we are seeing these hit all 4 cores at 4.4 gigahertz, and then slowly start moving on down once temperature starts rising, power consumption starts going up, and so it can stay at these higher clocks for longer. Now I believe, it's about 4.2, 4.3 for all 4. At some points it goes to 4.4. Single thread, of course, it wants to jump up to 4.4 all the time. But it's a much more granular setup, and it doesn't have specific rules that, say, like Intel has. Now, for example, like 3770K, if you've got all 4 cores running with hyperthreading, the max turbo is, 3.7 gigahertz. You can go into BIOS and crank that up so that when all 4 cores are going, it's 3.9. But Intel sets rules and says, hey, you can only have 2 cores running at 3.9 at any one time. If you got all 4, then you got to go to 3.7. Somebody trying to say something?
No, I was agreeing.
Oh, well,
confirming your statement, yes.
It's nice somebody believes in me.
Well, I don't know about that.
All right. Anyway, this is, and it's going to vary die from die just because of the way they've implemented it. Their measuring is accurate enough, their algorithms, to see how the CPU and the GPU portion not just interact, but who needs more power when, and it can kind of tell which one's being the bottleneck. And when that point is reached, then it puts more power towards either the GPU or the CPU to improve overall performance, thereby getting rid of the bottleneck as best they can.
Yeah.
So Richland is a big jump, not so much in performance, but in thinking and enabling these advanced, kind of power usage scenarios. So this is something that they're really going to utilize come in the future.
Right.
They've already implemented a lot of this in Kabini, and we're going to see much more of this in Kaveri, that they're really hoping that, we've got this huge piece of silicon. It's, well, not really huge, but still it's pretty big. And they figure that in any workload, there's going to be areas that are just going to be underutilized. So what they're going to do is take power from those areas, clock them down, and apply power and increase the clock in the areas that can really use it in those certain scenarios. So this is something that's going to be quite important for AMD because they're really kind of stinking badly when it comes to IPC and multi-thread performance, as we have seen with the latest Haswell parts. So, what have you thought, just kind of looking, having worked with Haswell and doing a massive review on that, and then kind of seeing everything that's been, written about Richland, what are your impressions of it?
I really want to believe that Richland can be a competitive part. It doesn't, looking at the benchmarks in your article, it's behind by quite a bit in some significant processor, centric tests, video transcoding and that kind of thing. The graphics side, where it stands up, though, still makes it, in my vision, a very compelling product for a lot of people that aren't doing heavy computing tasks. My personal workstation that I use here at the office is a quad-core, non-hyper-threaded, a 3350P, I think, is the Intel part. It's still going to run a little bit faster than than the A10 1600K, but not by a huge amount. And the graphics side is actually pretty impressive. What AMD needs is OpenCL to be as ubiquitous as it's been promised to be for the last 5 years. And as you saw, if we look at like the SciSoft OpenCL result on your testing, compared all of the APUs to the Haswell 4670, and you'll see that it actually has an advantage there because it's able to take or use those Radeon cores to like in an effective way. I don't know. From a desktop standpoint, I don't think Richland changes much from Trinity. I'm curious to see what Richland can do on the mobile side, if these power monitoring capabilities are somehow enabling them to improve battery life in a dramatic fashion, as opposed to just, a little bit more efficient desktop platform.
Yeah, I think they're going to see a larger increase in battery life from Richland when we're talking mobile. But the only problem with that is when we're looking at mobile, it's now competing against Haswell. And not only Haswell, but Haswell with GT3 and GT3E graphics, which kind of wipes out any advantage that AMD
Well,
had.
GT3E is going to be very power hungry. Based on all indications that I've been told, GT3E is probably only going to be in like desktop replacement style laptops.
It's a 45 watt to 55 watt part, which again, Trinity is I think offered in up to 45 watts, and I think Richland the same. But yeah, I mean when we're looking also at around the 25 watt sweet spot, 25 to 35 watt, then we're looking at the GT3 versus the VLIW4 architecture of the Trinity and Richland parts, and those are much better, I guess, balanced. But GT3 looks, from indications from other competing websites from us who received hardware, that it's slightly faster than what AMD offers, but we don't know anything about how good the drivers are. And one thing that I really, really, really want you to do sometime is to do frame rating on both the latest Richland parts with the drivers that AMD does, and what Intel has with Haswell. It's just unfortunately you don't have
parts.
A GT3 part.
Sucks.
I'm gonna have to call somebody about this because I have so much pull at Intel.
Do it, then I'd appreciate it. Anything you can, anything you can do, because apparently what I do is not important.
Not nearly enough. But for $142, you do get a lot of processor. You get a lot of features.
Yeah,
it runs everything really well. I'm running on the test bench, all kinds of just like photo apps and whatnot. And the limited time I'm on there, it doesn't hold me back. It's not like, geez, this is so slow, and I'm clicking my mouse and banging on the keyboard. It's not like
fun.
That. Yeah, I mean it is fun to do that anyway, but usually I'm watching stuff anyway. But kind of moving along. Overclocking was a bit of a surprise. If you remember the original Trinity review, I was unable to get it above 4.4 gigahertz. I'd try 4.5, no matter what I did, wouldn't go. This was not a, side corner or, corner case.
Yeah.
Everybody who had this was unable to really get above 4.4 to 4.5 at all. Well, this went up to 4.8 easy. And I wasn't able to really get it up above that, but I didn't try exceptionally hard. It clocks better. It overclocks better. I was able to take the graphics portion up to 950 megahertz. They said that some people can get it above 1,000, but perhaps with the motherboard solution, BIOS solution that I'm using, it would, even though it would claim to be 1,000, it would say actual core clock 950, and performance would. It wouldn't budge at all, no matter how far I set it up above 950. But saying that, it really comes alive. It moves along pretty good at 4.8. And what's perhaps most interesting is that we do not see a massive jump in power from the wall. And as remember, I mentioned with the Vishera, even though that's the 4-module product with the L3 cache, when clocking that from 4 gigahertz base up to 4.8, we got nearly 100 watts at the wall extra pull. Now, when I clock this one from 4.1 base to 4.8, and even though it's only 2 modules, we still only saw about a 25 to 30 watt increase at the wall, and that was with the graphics portion overclocked as well. So AMD has done a lot with the process at Global Foundries. They've done a lot with the design. They've done a ton with the firmware and the software to get these, the better power characteristics, and it has improved overclocking for this part. So it's kind of a fun little part. It may not be best for all enthusiasts, but it's a neat product, and I think for the price that they're offering at, it still is competitive with what we see, even brand new from Intel.
All right, there's more details, benchmarks, and results in the full review of the A10 6800K and A10 6700. Thanks, Josh. Maury, we have you back?
Yes.
Okay. We basically kind of closed up the MSI. Was there any last comment you wanted to make about that MSI Z87 GD65 gaming? Are we good?
No, we're good. I mean, it's really just another high-end Z87. It really comes down to price and looks. When you're choosing the high-end boards and how much money you have to spend. Nothing much else.
All right. We're going to take an interlude here before we move on to some other things. Now, we're going to try to do them quickly. But everybody, if you go to PCPro.com the next few days, you may have noticed that there's an inclusion of a new character on the website.
You're invincible.
A large white robot on the left-hand side of the screen. And I wanted to make sure we gave...
increase the speed
Hey,
of
do you have something
blades.
against black robots?
Well, I didn't make the design. I didn't make the design.
No, but there are red robots. It's
Hey, don't give away the ending, okay?
All right.
We're going to play the video. I want everybody to know the source of this new thing, just because I find it incredibly intriguing.
Josh
let's
is a source.
You're going to have to listen, too, so everybody else be quiet.
There's been a breach reported in Sector 8, and we're going to dropship you right into the heart of the chaos. We're confident that you should tear through those old familiar applications with the modifications we've made by increasing the speed of your frequency blades.
I assume that these things represent processing tasks.
They're your core soldiers.
No, not yet.
You should know, though, that we've picked up a new signal coming out there. Could be a new app. One that you've never come up against before.
How much did AMD pay to get Daft Punk to do this?
And where is Ruby?
Okay, so
Look at those workloads going down.
They're completing processing tasks. Just go with it.
Kill-9.
This is not Unix there, Jeremy.
This is obviously Tron operating system.
Hey, look, all the little bug things are now succumbing to their power.
I want to know what processing task this beast represents. What do you think it is? You think it's Cinebench?
No, I think it's Samaritan. I think it's the Samaritan demo, the demo that just will never die.
I was going to go with Firmark, but Cinebench.
This is like the HSA optimization in progress.
Oh, it must be Rage then.
It's a really well done video.
Oh, now his firm thingy went all limp.
It's Voltron.
Snap.
1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, baby, take it more.
Cores, we've deployed hundreds of Radeon cores to your location. Meet the reinforcements.
Really, the Radeon cores are much, much smaller than regular.
I thought that initially too. Oh man, what a shocking ending.
Okay, so their marketing guy said, all right, I want you to take Tron, Avatar, throw in some Halo,
And some Crisis.
Star Wars lightsabers just for effect.
And the answer you get is that video.
And don't forget Blade Runner too.
I didn't see any Blade Runner. There's no replicants there.
All right. I just wanted to... That was not a paid spot at all. I just felt like this is a video that needed to be seen by as many as people as possible because I think it's actually really well done, but I don't...
Terrible price.
It's kind of
I question... I question like how many APUs is going to sell, I guess, is what it comes down to.
I'm gonna go buy one now!
I didn't know that kind of battle was
pumped.
inside my PC.
Bravo to
what?
like the...
You never watched
guys that put
Reboot?
that
Did you
together,
realize there's
Okay,
a battle inside your PC?
Let me kind of throw a little wooden shoe in your gears.
Is it going to be short, though?
Yes.
No.
So you've got all this potential power in your APU. Ouch. And you've got these Radeon cores. Your OpenCL is great. And you decide, you know what? I want to have better graphics performance, but I still want to use my APU and all that power within it. Well, guess what? You put a greater than HD 6670 graphics card in there, it disables the APU. Well, I mean, your CPU still works, but the graphics portion does not. And so any kind of workload that you want to do to CPU while still, rendering graphics with your graphics card, it's all going to be on your graphics card and just the 4 cores because they have not yet gotten the whole HSA initiative down with Richland. So if you're thinking you're going to have this, monster floating point single precision CPU,
maybe
that's going to...
Maybe you just need me to play that video again.
Well, wait. There's something important that video taught me is that so you have your processor and you throw a bunch of stuff on it for it to do, and it's going to take 2.5 minutes for the reinforcements to arrive.
They should have thought
That is
ahead.
the very definition of latency.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
Josh, doesn't the Intel, the Haswell does the same thing as far as disabling the onboard graphics?
Yeah,
Because
but
I've
they
seen
have
some
the
things
whole
where that
Virtu
people were saying,
thing.
"Oh, well, I can offload the physics to my new Haswell," and apparently you can't.
No, I mean, yeah, but the only difference between Haswell and AMD is, 1, your CPUs are a lot faster than Haswell. 2, you can use the Virtu software to enable the quick sync, and I think, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but Intel's also doing an internal workaround so you can still do quick sync.
On Haswell, I believe so, but nothing else right now.
Yeah. But yeah, we're still not quite there yet in either solution with utilizing a large piece of silicon on that APU to do work other than just graphics if you've got another graphics card installed.
Fair enough. Moving on to obviously very similar topic. ARM Cortex A12 was announced this week at Computex. A12 is a brand new CPU from ARM that will be, as the name would imply, in between the 9 and the 15. They are claiming a 40% performance increase over the Cortex A9, still compatible with Big Little, which is combining the A15 with the A12, or I'm sorry, no, A7 with the A12 to kind of enable variable power consumption workloads. Still on the XA7 architecture. It is a new design, though. They didn't get a whole lot of detail about it. It is an out-of-order dual issue, 11-stage pipeline, new L1 and L2 memory subsystem, that kind of stuff. Like I said, not a whole lot of details on it yet because this is something that will not be sampling even until late 2014. So we've still got a while before we start to see any of these processors.
That's a literal coon's age.
Yeah,
as my neighbor would like to say.
I mean,
it's processor.
It's an
days.
interesting thing, right? So the reason Big Little exists is because the A15 has high performance, but it has a lot of issues running at low power, and then the A7 kind of fixes that, right? But then you have this whole transitionary stage where there's some inefficiencies that happen, and there's some performance slowdown that happens that maybe the A12 will be able to address. Maybe this is kind of like its way of kind of fixing the problem of the gap between 9 and 15 in terms of performance and power efficiency. But the problem is we won't know that until later in 2014. They also announced new Mali T622 GPU. They haven't given us any raw performance numbers, but they did say it was 50% more energy efficient than the T600, and it can run in 1 or 2 core variations. And then they have a new video processor as well that is apparently scalable up to 4K resolutions, although maybe not necessarily useful right away. So not much there other than ARM is, it kind of feels like ARM's starting to come under a little bit of pressure once they started to see things like AMD Tamash and Intel Silvermont. They even got competition from people who license from them, right, in terms of Qualcomm and that kind of thing. It'll be interesting the rest of this year, although I think 2014 will be significantly more interesting in terms of who was using what chips and what products in mobile devices kind of going forward.
You know what the best thing for ARM is? Even with guys like Qualcomm doing their own and NVIDIA kind of rolling their own, they're still paying ARM licensing fee.
That's true. If your competition is also buying their stuff from you, that's not a horrible deal. But
no.
All right. Other small form factor news, small chips and large form factors, is the AMD Opteron X series low power microserver part.
That would be correct. And I wrote about this as well. You've gotten a lot of productivity out of me lately. What is your secret?
Whips.
I think that's a good solution. Anyway,
tell me about
X
it.
Series.
Yes.
Kabini is a good product. Okay. It's a good low-power product that has a lot of interesting things to it. It's got GCN architecture. It's, again, low power. It's got good performance per millimeter squared. Power consumption is incredibly minimal. So they've released 2 models, one with an APU and one with a NOT. And these can be configured dynamically from 9 to about 22 watts TDP, depending on the workload and which chip you're using. Now, obviously, the one without the graphics portion is going to be the lowest at 9 watts. It's still going to be a quad-core product with something like, is it 2 or 4 megs?
I don't know.
Of cache. I think it's 4 megs of L2 cache. It's a significant jump in performance from the previous Bobcat. You've got double the cores and about the same amount of die space, and you're not really increasing TDP. AMD has also done a couple other things.
Hang on, Josh.
What's that?
Hang on, Josh. I was just informed that we talked about this on last week's podcast.
We did.
Apparently. You posted it during the podcast.
Oh, that's right. So anyway, that's the X series.
Okay. Maury, you did post an article on water cooling radiator comparison. And in the effort to try to trim time and point people to go read this story, what is like the tag? What will get people interested enough to go to PCPro.com and read this story immediately following listening to the podcast?
Bigger is not better.
Josh has already turned off the show. That is what he has built his entire life on.
No, but basically I had two 360 radiators. I had a thinner radiator that was basically a 27 millimeter, which is a little bit thicker than a normal 25 millimeter fan, that had had more fin per inch on it, and I had a thicker radiator that was basically 50 to 60 millimeters, which is basically 2.5 fans or so, but it had less fins per inch. So I put those two head to head, and what I found was that the thicker radiator did perform better than a thinner one, but it wasn't double. It was only, like a 3 to 5 degree difference. The review kind of morphed from a radiator comparison to this thickness versus fin per inch count comparison. There's been some comments that my measurements and my tactics for approaching it weren't quite, up to industry standards. I'm working based on what I have. I don't have the lab equipment that Martin's Liquid Labs has, and some of the guys over Extreme, the Extreme Forums have.
Yeah, but if you're testing what real people see with these devices, that's all that.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
am
basically what I
about.
did was I took the two. I kept the loop the same. Same pump, same heat sink, same fans. Change out the radiators. And then I measured ambient temp and I measured the temp of the CPU, and then I took the delta of that, and that's what I posted. A lot of these reviews will post the delta between the temperature of the CPU and the temperature of the block and the water temperature. I don't measure water temperature. I've been water cooling for 10 years or more. I mean, I've been doing it a long time.
Yep.
I don't measure my water temperature. I measure my CPU my CPU temp, and the CPU temp will go up based on your ambient. Yes, your water temperature is going to be should be about ambient if you're cooling right, but ambient versus CPU temp for measuring radiator performance and water loop performance is not in invalid spec. It is a valid way to do it. It's just not a traditional way to do it. That's all. I mean, that's what.
Fine.
That's what a lot of people are going to do anyway.
Right.
So,
All right, so check that out if you're looking, if you're into water cooling, you're interested in it. Maury has posted that review up early last week. Some more Computex news. This is pretty exciting and kind of a surprise for me. ASUS announced the PQ321 31.5-inch 4K monitor. This is Ken says he wants this, but
isn't it like $3,900?
I didn't say I was going to buy it.
Yeah, he didn't say he wanted to pay for it. He said he wanted to have one. So it's
Yes.
32-inch class, LED backlit panel, 3840 by 2160, 1.07 billion colors, 350 candle. What am I trying to think of there? I don't know. Candelas per meter squared. There's a specific name that associated with that.
Yeah. Well, it's got 10-bit RGB, which is, sort of a big thing for the professionals.
Sure.
And it's the fancy new indium gallium zinc oxide sort of IPS, sort of something we're not quite sure what it is, although one of our readers is pretty sure, if I can find it here.
Sharp, I think. The only one that's making that panel, I'm being told.
Yeah,
so.
well, it's got to be Sharp.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
Also, this has 2-watt stereo speakers. So that's what you want on your $4,000 monitor, is the cheapest speakers you can possibly buy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
man.
it's like Jaguar. Only the finest English crafted parts fall off of this car.
Apparently, they also announced a 39-inch version of a 4K display.
But that's going to be an MVA panel. That's going to be a
Okay.
TV. It's going to be much cheaper, I think, than 31.5-inch.
This PQ321 supports DisplayPort 1.2, which is pretty awesome. So you can do 60 hertz if you have on a Quadro card, and I think on the 7000 series it supports 60 hertz 4K panels. So NVIDIA needs to step up its game on that one. I'm desperately trying to get this monitor in as soon as possible. Not for Ken, but for us. As a communal group, but it'll just stay on my desk.
And when exactly am I going to share in this monitor?
Also,
Josh, I'll fly you out. You can look at it for 5 minutes.
no.
Oh, come on. The flight will be cheaper than
Maybe
I'll
I'll
still be making money off of this.
Maybe I'll bring it to QuakeCon or something like that. I can game on it, but I'll have to pay a guard to stand next to it the whole time.
cool. You can hook it up to my computer, Ryan.
Nah, probably not. NVIDIA launched 700 series mobile graphics. These are Kepler-based parts that implement GPU Boost 2. They are up to 15% faster, they're claiming. Goes up to the 780M, which is actually a GK104 GPU, 1536 shaders. Running at pretty high frequencies, 823 megahertz base clock. And the memory running at, was that 6, that's 5 gigahertz.
I don't know. What are you looking at?
It's 5 gigahertz.
Okay.
Yeah. So they announced the 780M, the 770M, 765M, 760M, and as the tradition continues, these have nothing to do with the associated desktop parts. They're just named based on the level there. We have an MSI GT60 laptop in-house that we are running some tests on. Going to compare to the 780M, to the 680M, to the 7990. I think that's what it is. Yeah, 7990. Mobile parts. 7990 being a single GPU part, just to let you know kind of how screwed up mobile GPU naming schemes tend to be. Moving along, ASUS announced like a million things at Computex apparently.
The Trio, the Pad phone, or the FonePad.
Oh,
FonePad Note.
Wait, what? You're being serious?
The MEMO.
The ASUS FonePad Note is powered by the Atom Z2560 processor. Is this the phone that plugs into?
No, that's the pad phone.
Oh, it's the pad phone. Is the phone that plugs into the tablet?
Yeah.
Not
Plugs into a pad.
the,
Phone, that's a pad.
It's a 6-inch. The phone pad is a 6-inch phone. And
Who's on first?
ASUS.
oh, okay.
Oh, dear Lord.
They announced the MEMO pad, which is an Atom 2560 SoC part as well. That's Clover Trail Plus, right? Am I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 7-inch, 1280 by 800 HD Android. Is that Android? Sure.
Yeah.
Which one?
ARM Cortex A7 quad-core CPU. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, the MEMO pad.
Oh, that's the MEMO pad. Okay. Yep. Gotcha. They
It's
also
got a
announced.
picture of a fish on it too, right? Ah!
Oh man, They announced the VivoPC. They got a new router, the first AC 1900 router. They announced the Vivo mouse, the world's first combined mouse and touchpad. And then they announced
A
the,
very small man came out and showed.
the Transformer book Trio.
The Trio has 2 Intel processors in it, a Haswell and Clover Trail Plus, I believe.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's the Clover Trail is on the screen portion, so you can pull that apart,
Yep.
and you can actually use both options at the same time unplugged. So you have to plug in a monitor into the base unit, and you
Yeah.
can use the tab at the same time.
So
Yeah, but it's an i7 in there.
so you can take the tablet portion, the screen off of it, and you have an Android tablet.
Yes.
All right, and then the Haswell hardware stays in the base, in the keyboard
Yep.
part, and you hook up a display to it, and now you have a Haswell desktop, small form factor machine. It's not a laptop because you can't really. It's not. Yeah.
Well, you can
if the-
carry it around. You just snap the
But if
other
the
screen on it.
if the screen is on it, you still have Haswell, right?
Yes.
We're not sure if it's Haswell or Android.
No. If it's docked, maybe you get to choose.
Maybe you do.
It's like choose your own adventure.
Choose your own operating
Yeah.
system adventure.
And processor. And DDPs. And
Fast or slow?
Oh,
Would you
there's
like your nuts
so
on
many
roast or
combinations I
baked?
could use.
Useful or not useful?
Do you think it's going to be cheap?
No.
Just the top part will be cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more ASUS stuff coming. Let's jump because I'm going to keep it in the order that I put them in the show notes for whatever damn reason. Western Digital shrinks 1 terabyte hard drive down to 7 millimeters. Is that small, Alan?
For a 1 terabyte blue, yes. It was previously only a 750 gig model, so now it's 1 terabyte.
Okay.
Simple as that.
All right. And there's a picture. See how small it is on that person's hand?
It looks small.
Is
yes.
that a big hand or a small hand referentially?
If only they had something else to measure, like a banana.
Well, I mean, 7 millimeter. Okay, so like here's a 7 millimeter, SSD. So I mean, that's it's kind of thin for.
Put it in your hand,
in
for
your
God's
hand,
sakes.
Demonstrate the motion. Demonstrate what the picture shows you. Show us.
What the
Alan's hand isn't as
first,
pretty
okay?
as the hand in the picture, though.
that?
There we go.
Oh, by the way.
Oh,
So
Turn
that
it around,
so
not
that hand in
faster.
the picture is fairly large. I gotcha. All right.
yeah. They always use. They have like Andre the Giant's brother that they bring in, for
Alright.
those.
Because Andre would just be a little skeletal.
It's like, yeah, is this 2.5-inch SSD PCB? Here you go.
Perfect. Yeah. Corsair launched the Carbide Air 540 and 330R mid-tower cases. This is interesting. What do you guys think about this case design?
The Air
It looks like
540.
a humidifier.
This
I
it kinda
like the
does.
I like the 540.
I think the
case is
540 looks
awesome. You
cool.
can put so much crap in that. Holy crap! You could put so much
Literally.
stuff in that thing. And when I look at a
And
case,
it's got
I'm
a nice
looking at
pass-through
two
going,
things.
too.
How many radiators can I stuff in the thing?
Well, this is so the idea
Can I
here.
put all my water cooling crap in there and my drives and not have to mod it?
The idea is it's wider rather than taller, right? So the power supplies actually and the radiators are moved off behind the motherboard, right?
Yeah,
so
5.5-inch drives in your SSDs.
yeah,
Yep.
huh?
And your
This-
and your
this
power
section right
supply.
here?
And you have another
5.5-inch
section to hide your
drives, and
kids
there's
and
an
hide your
SSD bay
wife.
in there as well.
The case is split up into two chambers that uses the company's quote direct airflow path techniques. The left chamber hosts motherboards up to EATX in size, along with PCIe cards and two hot
They call
swap
the left chamber
3.5-inch
sinister.
drive bays. The second right chamber holds the ATX power supply, 5.25-inch drives, SSD drive bay, which can hold up to 4 SSDs. The motherboard tray separates the two chambers, but Corsair has added a number of rubber cable routing grommets to aid in management, as you would expect. I like it.
I think it's probably a little thicker than the 900D because the 900D you were showing in your thing with JJ yesterday.
Yeah,
I didn't realize how thick that case actually was.
yeah,
That's a pretty wide case.
yeah.
This is going to be thicker. I mean, it holds
Yeah.
EATX ports.
Well, that would be no. I think he's talking about like
No, I'm talking about width.
width, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's taller than I think the one you were looking at, wasn't it?
I don't.
I didn't
The
see
nine-
You're
measurements
talking
on
about
this
different
one.
dimensions than we are.
The
I think.
950D is smaller than a overweight fifth grader.
There's no such thing
They
as a
build
950.
them bigger than they used to in my day.
The other case is the 330R mid tower, fairly upfront, brushed aluminum finish, tapered edges, something, low cost, $89, available now apparently, holds fans. Back to the ASUS barrage of things that were released. They are working
Dude,
on.
guess what? We are only halfway through our news.
Don't make Ryan cry.
I will leave right now.
Sexy time.
And it's going to take longer the more you just ramble on and interrupt me when I'm trying to talk about ASUS working on a GTX 770 Poseidon with a hybrid water block and air cooler heatsink fan thing. This reminds me of old time cards. What was that? We were talking about the ECS
I don't remember
released a
old time
set.
cards with that growth coming out the side.
I think Thermaltake actually released a cooler like that for the.
I think it was
480.
ECS.
I think GTX 480. Well, no, I mean, I think they someone released one that was a third party one or something.
Oh, okay, okay.
The
It
dual,
was like an
these-
EVGA board or something that came out in a water cooled version.
I don't know these dual things. I mean, I hope they designed it better than they used to because the old ones that come out like with this, the water block really wasn't worth anything. You know, it was better just to leave it as an air cooler. And
So
that's
they call this the DirectCU H2O cooling. It's a 770 GPU. Let's see, supports both air and liquid cooling. The CoolTech fan combines blower and axial fans in one design, forcing air in multiple directions over the heatsink to maximize heat dissipation. Liquid cooling reduces operating temperatures by up to 31 degrees Celsius for cooler running and with even greater overclocking potential. And it also features a red pulsing ROG logo for a distinctive dash of style.
Because we all need a little style.
It's cool looking. Hey, innovation. I'm for it, as long as it's not $300 more expensive than it should be. More stuff from ASUS. They unveiled the first Mini-ITX ROG motherboard. Maury, do you like this board?
Yes, this is really cool, and actually, I wanted to give you guys a little bit heads up onto what it's going to look like because
You got one already?
No, I don't have one already. You haven't sent it to me yet, but no, I have something like it.
No, I've got a piece of cardboard that's cut in
I drew on it.
No, there was some
I
questions
glued a
about what
sound
the
card
daughter
to the end of
card
it.
was. If you guys can see this board here, this is the
There you go.
This is the ASUS Z77i Deluxe,
Mhm.
and you can see the daughter card there houses all the VRMs. That's the same design that they're using on this ROG board. Basically, they put all the VRMs on the daughter card to free up space on the main board so they could add in all the stuff and not have to cut features. It really looks like it's tight, but it's really not. You can fit a pretty good sized cooler on there. It's a tried and true design. I mean, they tried it the first time with the Z77i Deluxe. It worked well, and I think that's why they went with it on the ROG. So
It's pretty cool. This and I like the that they added the second riser for the sound stuff there.
It's like in 3D. I'm serious.
it's like in 3D.
It's like almost every edge will have something like coming vertically off of it, right?
Well, and if you've got to stack that many USB ports on top of each other, you might as well just use the extra space.
Right. Nice. Oh well. And let's see, what else do we have? They announced the Maximus 6 Formula motherboard, which is an ROG board, but it adds thermal armor to it, which is pretty awesome looking.
Yes, that is a really cool board too. It actually adds thermal armor, but it also comes with water cooling ports on the VRM heatsink. It doesn't actually come with valves; it just comes with a hole, and the hole is a standard. And for all you water cooling guys out there, you'll know what this is. It's a standard G 1/4 inch hole, so you can fit pretty much any kind of any kind of valve in there. Go up to 3/4 inch if you wanted to. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could.
Right here. Okay.
You could.
It does.
I wanted to come with valves,
And
not
you can
as
hit it with
bad
a
when you're water
sledgehammer.
cooling.
I don't even care about like what the thermal armor does for me technically, but I just think it looks pretty awesome. I think if they maybe add some lights to that. Yes. Add some red light right here where it has the ROG logo. Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
There's sort of a Knight Rider,
the
red
black-
lights going back and forth.
No.
No, not that. Please, Lord, not that. Believe it or not, there are other companies at Computex. Gigabyte announced the Brix PC,
Brix. Hans Brix.
named after Colin Brix, Brix. This is a small form factor mini PC that kind of looks like the Intel Nook. This will have a little bit higher performance componentry, I believe. They have a, GBXM1 Haswell up to the Core i7 4500U, and they actually have a Kabini version as well, which is kind of cool, up to the A4 5000 APU.
Well, that's got to be one of my favorite things about it. I mean, ASUS put out the same sort of a model of tiny PC,
Right.
but they've all been Atom-based, which are cheap and useless. Or you can spend a lot on the current generation Intel stuff. But hey, Kabini? Ooh, that's not going to be expensive.
I would think not. I would hope not.
And it's going to work. For an HTPC?
Right.
Come on.
Yeah. They've not yet released pricing or availability on the GBXM1, but expect the Kabini models to be noticeably cheaper than the Haswell counterparts. Indeed. The Mini Brix PC. I just like to say it now.
Brix.
Mini Brix PC. Gigabyte also showed off a motherboard, which was kind of interesting, the GA990FXA UD7 AM3 Plus board. But maybe what is more interesting about this particular photograph is this photograph.
Dun, 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 dun.
When you look at it, they had on the little descriptor plate there, supports AMD next generation AM3 Plus 5 gigahertz FX series processors, which led us to kind of do some more reading on it. And apparently, there's going to be a 8-core, nearly 5 gigahertz AMD FX 9000 part with like 8 megs of L2 cache, 8 megs of L3 cache, and a 220 watt TDP.
Now, 220-watt TDP is not unheard of. There are some server chips and high-end stuff that, like IBM, some that are Power 7 series or 200 plus watts.
Yeah, okay.
So it's
Yeah.
not uncommon, but it's uncommon for desktops. Now, originally when I heard about the rumor of this 220 watt part, I thought, okay, we've got Centurion. We may have like 1,000 of these chips coming out that they can go up to 5 gigahertz, but it sounds like they're actually planning a SKU that is going to run around there, either in turbo mode, but I would assume turbo mode rather than stock, or maybe it will be just a flat 5 gigahertz.
5
with no
gigahertz.
turbo mode. 5 hertz, bad.
Yeah, but Josh, usually the server chips that run that fast, don't they usually use water coolers?
Yeah,
Or very
it's
loud
high-end
fans?
water cooling, IBM,
They
big
build a
iron
whole room which
servers.
is specifically
Yeah.
cooled.
Yeah,
you know.
Mineral oil.
yeah. But you got to figure, okay, what does a GTX Titan run at?
100,
250 watt TDP.
250
Yeah, but that's
watts.
a graphics
250
card.
watt
That-
TDP.
Yeah, but that's a graphics card, and that's over a lot bigger. I mean, those fans are huge. You know, the surface area is huge. You don't
Yeah,
have a lot,
but what do
don't
you
have a
think
lot of
they're
surface
going
area
to?
over, CPU.
What do you think they're going to bundle this with?
water cooler, high-end water cooler, at least something probably
Yeah,
a
and
dual,
so what's the difference between that and a
250 grand?
Titan's cooler?
About $800.
About $100.
Yes. So it's going to be cheaper to buy the CPU with the water cooler.
Than a Titan, yes.
I mean, they did this with the FX8150 and the FX8350, right? They had versions you could buy with the AMD, 100.
Yeah, and I reviewed that water cooler. It's a
Yeah.
solid water cooler. So
Yeah, but that water cooler that came with the 8150 isn't going to be enough for a 220 watt part.
No.
no, it's going to be a 240.
Yeah. You get
Millimeter.
240 mil,
Maybe a-
self-contained.
Yeah.
Maybe even a 480.
No.
What? No, 140. That'd be 280. Not a. Sorry, got my
Damn.
math.
Yeah. There you go.
So that's interesting. Josh, would a 5 gigahertz, 8-core AMD processor, what would it do performance-wise? Quick, do the math.
It would match a stock clocked and even exceed a stock clock 3770. But at 220 watts versus 77 watts.
That's less efficient.
No, it's not efficient at all.
That's less efficient. What's interesting is if you read the comments on it, there's a lot of people saying, hey, I will buy that anyway because awesome. Maybe you take a certain amount of pride in how much heat you can
Because
use.
race car applied to CPU.
Yeah, exactly. Because how expensive can I get fuel? Because I want to buy that engine.
because Bitcoin.
Eesh, yeah, it's not even going to work out well for them there.
Nope.
I think this might be our last bit of news.
Oh, thank goodness, because I'd like to eventually go to bed. And so would you.
I would, and it's later for me. Thanks.
Yeah.
Did you know that there is? We all knew that there is a new, faster version of Thunderbolt. It runs at 20 gigabits per second, and not content with just having Thunderbolt, Intel announced Thunderbolt 2. Gasp! I know. Thunderbolt 2 is
Still not as fast as they promised us originally.
Electric Boogaloo.
This is what they named the new chip, I guess. The new controller that can do 20 gigabit per second is Thunderbolt 2 now instead of just Thunderbolt. And then
Ryan,
now it supports 4K, which is crap because the previous model supported 4K too.
Do you think they announced this because of the USB 3 enhancement announcement? Because I thought USB 3, I don't remember the numbers, but I thought they were saying the USB 3 enhanced or whatever they're calling it is going to be at least 20 gigabit, I thought.
I have
I
no
mean-
recollection of that. Did anybody hear that?
This was
No, this
probably a month or
stands
so ago.
USB
I mean, it's not out
3
yet. It's
enhanced.
just
Okay.
back
But
in
can
there
it
saying
do
you're going to
PCI
need new
Express and
ports and new
DisplayPort
hardware.
at the same time?
I don't know. I mean, I just think they did this just because I think Apple's going to come out with a machine and they want to be able to say Thunderbolt 2 because Thunderbolt already came out. I mean, I don't know.
Is it going to be Thunderbolt 2, Electric Boogaloo?
Well, you can't call it the new Thunderbolt
Yeah, you can.
with the all-new Thunderbolt 2. I think, maybe make it a superscript or something like that, so it's Thunderbolt squared.
The chip
So much-
formerly
so much
referred to as Thunderbolt.
Is this the same? I think this is the same chip they're using on the new Z87 boards, like the Deluxe Dual and that kind of stuff. So, Little did we know when JJ was here on Tuesday that we already had Thunderbolt 2 in our possession. So, I like Thunderbolt.
But even he couldn't
whatever.
afford the monster cables.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm looking through this list here and make sure there's nothing else that I missed that I wanted to talk about. I don't think so. I think I'm done. That's Computex so far.
So does Thunderbolt 2 mean, though, that all those ASUS Thunderbolt ports are now useless?
No, not really.
Yeah, just like all those 1394A ports were useless when B
I know
came
a
out.
lot of people were asking. I did try to get JJ to give me information on the TB header. So the new Z87 motherboards have a TB header on them from ASUS, just like the Z77 did. And
Is that like a communicable disease?
it's kind of like that. It was meant so you could add in a Thunderbolt
Dude, you got a bad
add-in
case
card.
of TB headers.
The Thunderbolt add-in card that was never released because it's quote-unquote held up in qualification for some stupid reason. So they're not. I'll give ASUS credit this way. They're not promoting the TV header feature on the Z87 platform, even though it exists, because they don't want to piss anybody else off anymore. So, are you? If I skip the hardware picks of the week, are you guys going to be really sad?
Well, mine will be over
Yes.
by next week.
Jeremy, do you have something?
I'm testing this for work.
Oh my lord!
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I choked up.
Yeah.
Is that a cell
that
phone?
was a-
I'm
that
getting
was
used
a
to the whole
book. Is that-
touchscreen thing.
I can't even
Is that
say.
an
I don't really
1980s
like
phone?
it, but it's got a keyboard on it.
Uh-huh.
And frankly,
what
it's
a
not the
waste of
last time you
space.
probably see these things, because considering the costs that we're going to have to pay to try and cook this up to our enterprise system, because right now it can actually attach to our enterprise system with absolutely no security whatsoever, which is more than a little pathetic. We're now going to investigate everything that isn't BlackBerry and supports everything else along with the Q10.
All right.
But hey, it's a hell of a lot fancier than some of the ones I've had before.
Oh, look at how that screen slides.
Yeah,
Everybody
it's-
gets-
it's
Does it make a nice clicking
fast.
sound?
It's-
I'm going to text you so many
velvety.
messages, Jeremy.
All I have to do is that, and
Gonna
it gives
text
me my
you so hard.
emails.
That didn't do
Hey,
that.
Jeremy, mine's got it. Mine has a keyboard on it too. See?
That is
Yeah,
a
but-
fake keyboard, sir.
It's a fake one.
All right. Josh.
Me.
Yeah.
Just ordered this for work. Really excited to see it. Very inexpensive single processor G34 based bare bone system from Supermicro. It's nicely nicely kitted out, and it's only like $619, $620.
Single socket?
What do you get? Single socket, but that's okay because you can get up to 16 cores.
Not okay.
Well, whatever. But anyway, looks nicely built. It's cheap, and I like cheap and nicely built.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Alan?
Humble Indie Bundle 8 has 5 days remaining on it.
All right, what do I get?
If you offer a little over $5 or more closer to $6, which is the current
$5?
average, then that gets you like 11 games and 10 soundtracks, and they're all cross-platform, and they all work on Windows, Mac, Linux.
What
Pretty good
graphics
stuff.
card did you just install?
Wait, so you mean that
Me?
Yeah, you.
the songs will work on
I
Mac too?
just installed a 680 like 6 months ago.
Okay. All right.
Why?
Taking good use of it, I see.
Well, it's hey, those are some fun games.
No, I agree. Jeremy, did you have something to say? Or was it just witty repertoire unlike mine?
Well, it might have qualified as witty repertoire.
Did your mom knit that Afghan behind you?
Yes, actually she
Sweet.
did.
Don't do anything on it. I would do.
No comment.
All right. Apparently, Maury got disconnected right before his pick. He picked a XSPC Razer GTX 680 full cover VGA Waterblock. I'm guessing, based on conversations, that this is for his build for QuakeCon. So there it is. Sorry,
I'm
Maury.
holding some DDR. So, look how small that new DDR is.
That's cute.
It's not DDR.
That's going to be it for the show, finally. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you watch this live, I apologize because it's late. If you want to watch us live next week, though, you can do so at pcper.com/live. It's Wednesdays at 10 p.m. I may or may not be here next week. It may be somebody else who's running the show, because I'll be in LA for E3 on Wednesday. E3's canceled?
No.
Oh. So I may or may not be here. I'll try to be here, but it's 7 o'clock out there. It depends on how long it takes me to get back to the
It'll be
airport
Alex.
hotel. Right. Yeah. Wait, who?
Huh?
Oh, Alex is going to come out. Yes.
Alex is
Yeah, it'll
dead
just
to
be
me.
Alex.
Yeah. Yeah, Alex who? I never even knew an Alex. If you want to share the show, we would appreciate it. PCper.com/podcast. If you want the video versions of this, go to youtube.com/PCper, or just go to PCper.com/podcast. We always embed it with each episode there. Please spread the word. We want people to know about Josh. Just Josh.
And my rash.
Just Josh, really. Yeah. So yeah, that's it, I guess. We'll probably have another collection of Computex news next week, and we'll probably have more motherboards to talk about. And I don't know what Josh is going to do. Alan, you have storage things. You're going to do them this week? Yeah? Look at him shaking his head. Everybody see that? That's video evidence. Video evidence.
He's actually just looking at his cat right now.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next week. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malentano.
And he's Maury.
And he's a dialect.
Bye, guys.